to really connect and emphasize the close connection between life and form, how they can influence each other, and really understand that interconnectedness. And we have a strong focus on the user experience. That's also what we mean by life, that we need to go out and study how people appropriate space to really emphasize the user experience and how that can drive more design thinking. Really thinking that we don't necessarily know how people act and how they experience place, but we have to study that. Because what we find when we are actually out observing spaces, we uncover a lot of hidden needs, but also behaviors. So how can we really incorporate that into the way that we plan and design our cities? In this image, you'll see some bullets, and they were not really designed for sitting, but the way that people appropriate these different elements, urban elements, really is a clear indication of an unmet need for more sitting opportunities. So how can we really, by observing this behavior, learn what we need to do and what we need to change? We do that using multiple set of methods to really to focus in on people's lived experiences in places. So some of it can be done through this GIS mapping, so looking at urban places from above and using many different sets of data. But we also have this strong focus on observational methods, along with interviews with different kind of people and stakeholders, as well as mapping urban elements to really see how all this connect to each other. And the idea is to really start linking up different layers of data in order to create meaningful stories, but through a human-centered approach. So how can we create stories that make sense to people, where their lives and their experiences are at the center? So ultimately, it's about being more inclusive and adding that qualitative aspect by being on site, observing people, and thereby making people count. So with that quick introduction, I'll just go into more detail with one of the tools that we have developed, the Public Life app, and what that can do. It's a web-based platform that allows you to collect data in a systematic way and coherent, and it has been used in many different places around the world, looking at both how people move and spend time in public spaces. And in recent years, we have developed this with a special focus on exactly small children and their caregivers. So adding more detail into who they are, the age groups, and how you can either walk independently as a small child, or whether you are dependent on being accompanied by a caregiver, and also how you're being transported, whether you're being carried or in a stroller. So having this more nuanced set of data really allows us to take a picture on how welcoming public spaces are for children, but also the types of activities that people engaged in, and what children do and who they spend time with. We look at different types of modes, so both people walking, but also cycling, or maybe using scooters, or push bikes, and both the age and the gender is an important indication of the type of life that takes place, and it can tell us something about security and so on. Then collecting that type of data is a good entry point into really assessing conditions for walking, how many people are walking in places, and then going out and do measurements and look at the conditions, how much space is actually allocated for walking, and how much of the space is taken up by other things. It allows us to identify patterns over the day. So usually we will collect this data over a series of days, but also being both concerned with morning peak traffic as well as moments of the day that can be more quiet. So really understanding from each place what is the daily rhythm. Looking into these daily patterns, also in terms of gender. So this is a study that we did in Chennai, where we saw that there's a complete shift in who is using the city, who's walking at different times of day. So up until 5, we saw a great majority of women being present, but after 9 p.m., 70% of the users were men. So what does that tell us, and how can we plan with that knowledge in mind? We are very concerned and occupied with this, comparing movement patterns with also looking at people spending time. So not just moving from A to B, but what is the correlation between the two? Are places sticky? Do they invite people to not just move along, but also invite them to spend time? And who are being invited to spend time? And this spending time, we really focus in on different types of activities that are some defined set of categories that allows for comparison also across different cities and across different types of public spaces in a city. So we can start to understand the different roles that the public spaces play in the city, that some are more maybe inviting for necessary activity, like waiting for transport or engaging in some kind of commercial activity, while other spaces are inviting for play. And can we somehow make a diverse network of public spaces based on that? But also really looking into whether children are playing and when that happens, understanding different types of spaces like green parks in relation to streets, and whether children are present in both. So this was just a very quick run through of the type of knowledge that we are able to collect, but how do we really use it? What is the purpose of collecting this? I'll just quickly share an example from New York years ago, where collecting this type of data really was helpful in framing data in a way that citizens and politicians both understand. Very simple, but measuring the space, seeing that only 11% of the space was actually allocated as a pedestrian area. But if we look at it from the user perspective, 90% of the users were pedestrians. So with that knowledge in mind, how can we start to think about change and ask new questions? And in this example, the politicians realized that maybe Times Square was not really a square for people. So it really shifted the conversation of the role of that space. And it allowed for some quick changes. This image shows what it looked like before, and first it started out with some temporary tests of just putting out some furniture, just measuring then the impact of that, and having different stages of refinement with better seating, more assigned space, and then in the end making it a permanent solution. So this is a good way of using temporary pilot projects to really measure before and after and the impact. This is an example from a recent example from Tel Aviv, the Nodau street, where they put in at the center of the street some installations for children, but also what is the type of impact that you achieve. Being more detailed about the type of impact. Yes, we saw that there were more children playing, but it also had an impact on other people. So the type of activity going on, that more people were talking to each other and less people were using electronics. So really inviting for social activity across different age groups. Collecting this type of data is also a way of cities that they can start comparing patterns across. So here we had a process with 4 different cities that where they could start measuring up against each other and see how do their public spaces perform in relation to other cities. We have been able to do this over a number of years in a city like Odense in Denmark, where we have collected this type of data over several decades. And they're really being very strategic about how the whole city center is developing, whether numbers of pedestrians are going up and down, and what is the presence of children, and how can that inform new overall strategies for making a more child-friendly city center. But also thinking about how to, again, overlay this with other data sets. So in recent years, working with air quality, and in this project in Copenhagen, we were really interested in how very young children and their caregivers use this neighborhood in Copenhagen. We interviewed also daycare centers. Where do they take their very small children? What are the busy routes? And what type of urban environment are they being met with in terms of air quality? So where are air pollution levels high? Where do we then also see high concentrations of children? And can we begin with that in mind to design our cities differently, really trying to think about improving quality of life for the city's youngest residents. Maybe thinking of a more greener network, so both trying to reduce exposure where children spend most time, but also inviting them to maybe spend more time in places where the air quality is better. So I will stop here because we have limited time, but this was just a very quick introduction and with some concrete examples of what the data can be used for, but we can discuss more as we go along today.
Thanks very much, Louise. That was actually a wonderful introduction to the importance of observational data and being able to layer different types of data to create this sort of nuanced understanding. And you spoke about how it can help to inform strategic decisions as well, and allow cities to compare across each other. So with that, I think it kind of plays well into the next speaker. So I would like to request Jeenal Sawla from the DAMU team at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs to share about the work that the ministry is doing at national level to collect data specific to young children and their caregivers.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nandini. Hello, good morning. Rather good afternoon, close to good evening, everyone. At the ministry, we're the data analytics and management unit. We're the team here that is.
Jeenal, sorry to interrupt you, but maybe if you could just speak a bit closer to your mic. It was a little soft.
Sure, just give me a second. Nandini, are you able to hear me better?
Yes, it's a bit better.
Okay, great. I'll try and speak a bit louder. So we're the Data Analytics and Management Unit at the Smart Cities Mission, and we're coordinating and working very closely with the city data officers in each of your cities. What I'm going to show you today is an infant, toddler, and caregiver-friendly cities dashboard that we've developed here for the ministry. The data for this dashboard essentially comes from data that you have provided through Ease of Living, Municipal Performance Index, as well as the Climate Smart Cities Assessment Framework. So very quickly, what we have is the ITCN dashboard. And what you see, we've developed sort of 10 visualizations at this point based on the data sets that we have for all of the 100 smart cities. Once again, the data is provided by cities through AOL MPI as well as Climate Smart Cities Assessment Framework. So this dashboard here, what we want to essentially show is how the ministry is essentially benchmarking the cities based on various indicators that are relevant to infant toddlers and their caregivers, both indicators that are core, that are directly related to them, and those that are indirectly related. Here, this helps us at the ministry to understand how various cities are performing. For example, here, the amount of population that we have in the 100 smart cities between the 0 to 6 years population. Here in this data set, we have the pink resembles cities essentially that have higher female population between 0 to 6, and blue represents higher male population. The size of the circle also shows the size of this population. The way we've structured this dashboard is essentially we have description of the data. I'm sorry, this is moved. We have description of data, we have sources of data, and we have a key insight from that particular data point. And the reason why we're showing this to you is as you move forward in your data journey with BvLF and WRI through the NNC challenge, you will potentially also begin to map data for each of your neighborhoods or wards. And this could potentially give you ideas for how you may develop your own dashboard for the cities to compare ward-wise performance on ITCs. So go to the next one. Here we're essentially trying to capture the share of, I'm sorry. The dashboard that will come up. Here we're showing the share of 0 to 6 in slums as opposed to the rest of the city. So if you look at the bar graph, you look at the infographic on the bottom right here in orange and gray, we have names of cities at the bottom. For example, I'll take the case of Kota here. Orange represents the share of slum children, which is about 14% to this total slum population, whereas in the remaining city, the share of 0 to 6 years old is 12.14%. Same way, for Rajkot, we see a broader difference. In Rajkot, we have 14.9% of those living in slums is 0 to 6, whereas only 10.7% in the rest of the city are between 0 to 6. I'll go to another indicator. Here we have air quality. Air quality is important to measure from the perspective of 0 to 6 essentially, and essentially PM 2.5 particles, which are found to be closer to the ground in the 95 centimeters range. This is important because we all understand the sort of negative impacts that PM 2.0 particles has on young children. And although here in this infographic here, we're seeing average annual. I don't know why this is doing so. So here we have the way cities are performing in terms of air quality. So cities that show up as dark red or maroon are the ones that have really poor air quality throughout the year. And the ones that are in green have, and dark green especially, are doing much better. So cities like Devangere and Shivamoga have good air quality rest of the year, throughout the year on an average, and cities like Bareilly, Meerut, where we have Patna, have serious air quality concerns. Moving on to the next dashboard. Here the next slide, here we have city performances on Anganwadis. We're essentially capturing the number of Anganwadis that are there in each of these cities. The size of the circles here on the map show the number of Anganwadis that are there per 800 persons. This is the benchmark as per the Ministry of Women and Child Development. So we see cities in the south as well as cities like Rohtak, Ujjain, they have comparatively larger number of Anganwadis. But we also understand that all of the creches that cater to 0 to 6 may not be provided by the state or the cities themselves. There may be balwadis and so on. And so we understand this. However, here we wanted to represent the number of Anganwadis. So, and the last one I'll show for today is the instances of crime recorded against women and children in each of these cities. Feel free to check this dashboard out, and I'll also copy paste the link on into the chat. And please feel free to reach out to us for any questions that you may have. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeenal. So moving from city level data, as Jeenal said, where this is the kind of data also that can be collected at neighborhood level to be able to compare across wards. And so with that, I'll hand over to my colleague, Kaustubh Chuke from WRI India to speak about the data that will be collected as part of the Nurturing Neighborhoods Challenge specifically.
Thank you, Nandini. Please confirm when you can see the screen.
I can see it, yes.
Thank you. So good afternoon all, I'm Kaustubh from WRI India. I'm part of the team which supports Nurturing Neighborhoods Challenge in technical support. So in the next hour, we'll actually see that what is ITC-centric data, how it is collected, and what it can tell us. So please observe this image for a couple of just 10 seconds from a perspective of a caregiver or a parent who is accompanying an infant or a toddler. And you will be seeing a poll in your chat. It's just 30 seconds, so you have to just find out which is the most challenging thing do you find within this image. Is it crossing street, walking on the footpath, using IPTs as in photos, find shaded spaces? And wayfind. So naturally, all of these activities are difficult when you are with a toddler or an infant. But as per your responses, we can see that crossing the street and walking on the footpath are the most pressing issues that you have found out. So that is what we are going to do today, that we'll use data related to ITCs to identify ITC scenario as an infants, toddlers, and caregivers scenario within the city or neighborhoods, and how to prioritize actions with that. So let's understand what is ITC data. For that, we'll have to see where do they frequently go. So ITCs have to go to preschools, creches, early childhood development centers, as in primary health centers and parks. And for doing this, they access it through streets and junctions and their transit stops to take public transportation. While doing this, they face a lot of problems, which can be as in pregnant mothers and lactating mothers don't find lactation cubicles or easily access to public toilets. The children have very high exposure to pollution at the height of 1 meter. The streets are not very suitable for carrying prams and also for walking of toddlers. And some of the play equipment that is there, or the play area within the neighborhoods, it's not very suitable for a child under 5 years old. Rather, very small spaces like sand pits and all are suitable for them. So these are some of the problems. And when we put these together, what we can see is under 5 ITCN objectives, we can have certain examples of data that we can collect for ITCs, related to ITCs. It can be, for example, if we are seeing the playfulness, so we can find out if there is a dedicated play area within parks for the toddlers or children under 5, because their play habits are different. Or if we are looking at the green aspect, we can see if there are spaces which allow them to interact with natural elements and provide ample of play opportunities. And if we are focusing on safety, we can see if there is a physical buffer available at the edge of the footpath, and what is the air pollution level at the height of toddler's height, so that is 95 centimeters. So what we are doing is within the cohort phase, we are trying to gradually collect this data from cities. A couple of weeks back, you already would have received the data collection format, and the primary objective of that activity is to identify what infrastructure is available within the neighborhood and how ITCs interact with it. To start with, what we do is we should do on-ground data collection through on-site observations, conduct a few surveys, and interviews with the users of the facilities. This can be complemented with secondary data sources. As Jeenal mentioned, cities have collected a lot of data through various surveys for ease of living index, municipal performance index, and Swachh Bharat mission. That is really useful in this case. And all this can be complemented with spatial data and analysis, which provides us an understanding at the project level, the pilot projects that the cities are conducting. The grouping them all together will understand how the neighborhood, what is the baseline of the neighborhood, and as part of the scale up activity, will understand what is the scenario of ITCs at the city level. The whole activity will allow us to allow cities to evaluate and monitor short-term and long-term impacts. So within short-term impacts, what we have are physical changes that are easily visible as we improve them. But in long terms, when people start to use them, or more people are observed at the improved side, that is a type of a behavioral change that we see. In the subsequent sessions, we'll be focusing on these. So for now, I'll take you through the format that is shared. Within this format, we have grouped it by the facility so that it's very easy to do at each project level. And as we observed, most of the projects of the cities fall in these 5 categories, which are streets, junctions, transit stops, ECD services, which include Anganwadis and primary health centers, and parks and open spaces. And all the questions that we have within the collection format take care of all the 5 ITCN objectives that are safe, green, accessible, playful, and inclusive. What this activity will help cities to do is to design their projects based on evidence collected from this activity, then prioritize their actions related to ITCs, measure and evaluate change, optimize their budgetary allocations so that they can focus more on ITC solutions, and monitor their long-term goals when they are scaling up. Let's take one example. You would have already seen this, but I'll tell you how the data collection format is structured. So the example is of a safety of ITC along the street. We have grouped multiple aspects under multiple aspects, and we have 2 types of data points to collect. The first one is about quantitative data, which is about measuring what infrastructure is there, what features are available, and it will going forward allow cities to quantify the change that has happened. It also relates to who are the users of the space. Further, we have qualitative data, which focuses on quantifying the quality of the features that are present on these project sites. And this will allow us to measure change in experience at the project sites. One example of the street, for example, the quantitative data that we can collect is, for example, if there are number of, what is the width of the footpath, if there are any instances of level changes, as in the pedestrian has to step up, step down on them, and what is the length of unobstructed footpath, and there are few more. In terms of qualitative aspects, what we can focus on are what kind of temporary and permanent encroachment is there, if the material of the footpath is suitable for ITCs to walk on them, and if the trees are present to or if there are any other sitting areas which are shaded, because it's really important for ITCs to have those places. Moving forward, as Louise showed us, the Public Life app actually takes care of the aspects that are mentioned in the toolkit. This toolkit is developed by Gehl Architects along with Bernard van Leer Foundation for measuring urban experiences of young children. And within this, we have 5 toolkits, which our team members would be getting in touch with cities to carry out in the subsequent weeks. So how to define the neighborhood, as everything is, so in Indian context, neighborhood has not been a very popular concept, but now it's slowly percolating. And in terms of ITC, defining a neighborhood depends on what areas do they traverse. And because there are movement restrictions for ITCs because of their social, like their nature, they actually go maximum up to the 600 meters from their home, depending on age of a toddler or a kid. So let's see this from an example from a Indian city. So here what we can see are a cluster of projects, and from the center of that cluster, we have marked a circle of radius 600 meters. This is the area which we suggest that ITCs would be traversing. And with the help of major streets around it, we can define the priority zone. And once we have marked where the houses or where the households are, we can estimate the population within the neighborhood that's dependent on all these facilities. Moving forward, spatial analysis can allow us to understand accessibility to all of these facilities. For example, the ped shed, which is the analysis of how a person would walk to a certain distance. The walkable distance is taken as 300 meters, and to that distance, how much area of the priority zone is actually covered. And we can see a certain part of this priority zone does not have very easy access to the green open spaces, and adding one would be a good suggestion here. So now that we have understood what is ITC data and the broad context of it, let's we'll break out into sessions. We'll go into breakout sessions and get hands-on experience on collecting ITC related data.
So good afternoon, everyone. Hi, welcome to the breakout session. My name is Jaswant, and I'll be the moderator for the workshop. And Vanita will be the co-moderator who will be helping us to conduct this workshop. So quickly, just a second. Yeah. So housekeeping points. Firstly, I would request each of you to bear with this overall session. It is going to be a 45-minute session. where the first 40 minutes we will be brainstorming on certain aspects, and the last 5 minutes will be something where we'll be presenting the solutions or the inferences based on the work, based on the data collation or the workshop what we have just done. Okay. Second thing, I would request each of you to please have a pen and paper ready so that you observe and you note down these things. And each of you, will be observing certain videos. So I'll just broadly tell you how the workshop is going to be. The workshop is going to be further grouped upon. So we'll be playing 2-3 videos from here where we will be observing clearly with respect to a data aspect. We'll be observing counting of people, we'll be observing the status of the footpath or the condition of the spaces, and further we will be asking the participants to note this down or to write it down. Okay. Please note that the first video will be shown twice, but the second video onwards will be only showing it once because of the time constraint what we have. And also, if you have any queries or anything, please put it out into the chat, or you can just unmute yourself. But during the session, I would request not to unmute yourself. Also, do feel to share any observations in the chat while watching the video. Okay. So I will just show you the first one as an example, but before we go further, I would request each of you to introduce yourself with your name and the city where you are from, and if you're an architect or an urban designer or anyone. Okay. CB, why don't we start with you?
Sure, thank you. Hi everyone, this is Sibi Kurshinkal. I'm program coordinator with the BvLF team in India, and I'm currently based in Mumbai. I'm an architect and been supporting with the team across Urban 95 programs and also the Social Parent Plus programs. Good to meet you all, and thank you, Jaswant.
Chetan, do you want to go next?
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Chetan Nandani. I work as a Deputy Municipal Commissioner Rajkot and also as CEO of Smart City Rajkot.
Yes, sir. Naveed?
Good afternoon. My name is Naveed. I represent Agartala Smart City Limited. Actually, I'm not an architect or maybe anything. I'm just a guy who's an ICT expert working for this Pan City project. I'm just a team member in this for this particular program. So this entire program is being led by one of our team members, Motushi, who in fact she's in another breakout session. So I'll be just here. I'm trying to learn things here a lot. So I hope I'll be needing some more inputs and help from your end as well.
Thanks, Naveed. Thanks. Swarna?
Hello. Hi, Jashwant. I joined a bit late. I dropped out of the call. So sorry. Can you just repeat what you had asked?
We just asked you to introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi, this is Swarna Dutt. I work with WRI. I'll be, a part of this discussion. I can see Rourkela is here, Agartala is here. These are the two cities that I'm managing. So happy to work with you.
Thanks, Swarna. There are two Rourkela smart cities, so I would just put Rourkela Smart City Limited first, and then Rourkela Smart City can take up next. Or sir, CEO Smart City Jabalpur. So ma'am, could you just introduce yourself? All right. Udit, could you just tell us about you?
Hi everyone, this is Udit. I'm from Data and Management DAMU unit. Was I audible?
No, I think we just lost you.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm Mudit. I'm an architect, urban planner. I'm with DAMU unit from Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Thank you.
Tepa? Okay. Vandita, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. I will be your co-moderator for this session. I work with WRI India and looking forward to have this very enlightening session with you all. Do we have anybody remaining? We just had a new join. Somebody from the name of Tepa. Can you please introduce yourself so that we can just proceed with our session?
Okay. Sure, I think let's just
That's Mr. Deva from Kohima Smart City.
Okay, so we couldn't hear you. Roll ke Smart City. Okay, thank you. So I'll just play the video. I hope you can see my screen. So we would just want you to observe the video from a perspective of a caregiver and a perspective of a child. Imagine a child walking on this road and with a caregiver. What are the basic issues? What you see? Do they feel safe? Or with respect to walking across the spaces, with respect to the footpath or the obstructions, whatever they have, kind of have certain observations noted down.
आवाज नहीं आ रहा?
We can hear you. Also understand every aspect of the street. Imagine you are walking with your infant toddler, or imagine you from the height of a 95 centimeter. What would be your major issues walking across this space? The level differences, the dirt, the material, and the congestion which is on the footpath, and the obstructions like hawkers or the dirt along the street. What are the basic issues? What do you think? Like you see, you're at a bus stop right now, and from the bus stop, you don't have a level difference. It's on a little height. So imagine if you have to take your kid and get down, how would that be? So observe these kind of activities what are happening on the video, and further we will look into this with respect to data aspect of it. So we have close to 14 questions, and Vandita will just divide the overall participants in groups, wherein we want you to record these observations based on data aspect. We have like we have clearly mentioned previously in the presentation by Kaustubh, that there are two outputs which we are majorly looking at. One is the quantitative aspect of it. The second one is a qualitative aspect of it. So we want each of you as participants to observe this in a very data-centric perspective and kind of note it down and we will record these responses after observing this from this aspect. So Vandita, do you want to?
Yeah. So the idea is just to now keep in mind these data points and relook at the video to ensure that, if these indicators are there or not. So Mr. Chetan, why don't you take the first two, do the first two counts, total number of places where footpath is disjointed and the, permanent obstructions. Naved, Mr. Naved, could you please take 3 and 4 for count? Tepa, are you there or not? I'm not able to understand. But if you're there, could you take 5 or 6? Raurkela Smart City in observation, please take first and second. Raurkela Smart City Limited in observation, please take third and fourth. Okay. Sibi in observation, please take fifth and sixth. And Udit in observation, please take seventh and eighth. For easy reference, while we watch the video, I have pasted these counts and observation and the indicators in the chat. So while you watch the video, keep that you can look at the chat and see what you are supposed to count. Is there any question? Okay, then we can go back to the video.
So we'll just go back to the video and I hope everyone is ready with the data points. I will just play this in like 15 to 20 seconds right now so that you know what to observe from the perspective of data. Okay. Yeah, so I'll just play. Do you have any doubts? Someone just...
Yeah, Justin, would you also be pasting these questions in the chat box? Or
I think Vandita has already pasted it. If not, I will just...
Yeah, they're already in the chat box. Are you able to see them?
yes, but the observation is only till part of the fifth.
Part fifth. Okay, I'm so sorry. I'll just paste them the observation from fifth onwards in just a second. Gee, thank you.
Thanks, Adi. Does anyone also have any other doubts in observing or in what to do, etc.? These are very specific data points what we are planning to bring out, and we want to count them so that we can do it on both quantitative and qualitative. So you have yes and no, and you also have counting like numbers. So
I'm so sorry. I just typed in Mark.
Yeah. Who was this? I couldn't hear you.
Yes, Udit, is there any question?
No. I just typed the question. So don't think about this. So this is an answer.
Yeah, no worries.
So, have you guys been able to count the number, or is the video too fast? If you have your responses, then I will start putting up the responses, and we can then watch the second video.
So the first two, Mr. Chetan, would you like to talk about the counts, which you were able to count during the video?
Yes, many of them. Many of them. It is more than 10-15 places.
Okay.
First one is 1050. And total number of instances or permanent obstructions in the footpath.
There is one permanent obstruction.
Okay.
Few partial.
So what is the permanent obstruction? What you found?
Near that bus stop, there is a board which is completely, signage, which is completely blocking the footpath.
Okay.
And there is a tree which is partially blocking the footpath, and then there are some vendors.
Okay. Thank you. And total number of
Mr. Nawed?
Okay. Distance for temporary obstruction, what I observe is around close to around 6 to 7.
6 to 7. Okay.
Yeah.
And total number of
around temporary obstructions.
Okay.
Garbage dump is there. Hawkers, we see quite a lot of hawkers out there. You can see people sitting on the edge of the footpath, on the curb. And then we can see some broken tiles as well.
Okay.
So, and then we can see, the scooters parked, in front of the bus. And, where there is no stopping, there's no signage, nothing. They can just stopping on the street, on the road itself, without any illegal parking of the vehicles. I see a car as well. So there was a car parked on the road itself, on the set. And then for the second point is total number of locations with traffic calming measures. Scooter parking is one of them. Maybe I'm not able to.
I'm sorry, is there a count so that,
for count, I think this would be around 3 to 4, I think.
All right. Okay. Thank you. The next one.
Total number of pedestrians.
I think 4, right?
Okay.
I was supposed to do 3 and 4, right?
Yeah. From Agartala, Teva, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, I'm from Agartala.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. Okay. I thought they are. Okay. I don't think they're able to hear us, Jashwant.
Okay. So could you tell us about total number of pedestrian crossings? Have you seen in the video any pedestrian crossings?
You're asking me?
Yeah, anyone can answer because.
Pedestrian crossing within I didn't see because I believe
there was none.
So I think there was the road has been in the center of the road.
Yeah.
There is a concrete divider.
0.
Yeah.
Okay.
Signages, wayfinding boards, or are there any speed limits?
I think fortunately on any of the signages I didn't find it.
Chetan Dandani has written 0 signages as well in the chat box.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Presence of shaded walkways or shaded seating along the footpath. Have you seen any shaded walkways and footpath?
Was there yes or no? These were assigned to Rourkela Smart City. Yes or no? Did you spot any shaded space?
No, not exactly.
Okay.
How
The next one.
in the bus stop, I think that is shaded, right?
Yes, that was shaded. Yes, the bus stop was shaded, and also there were. I mean, if you call trees as shaded place, shaded walkways, trees were. I mean, we have noticed trees also.
Thank you. So, is there a texture of footpath material rough, coarse, or likely causing stumbling or fall or skid or anything? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. 3 and 4.
Smart City Limited. Rourkela Smart City Limited.
Yes.
Sir, have you observed any?
Can you read the question for us?
Yeah. Have you observed any buffers from traffic along the footpath? Is there a buffer? It could be a green buffer, or it could be a barrier.
There were some trees there.
Okay. I think when we meant buffer along the footpath or along the traffic would be something like a green buffer or a bollard or a railing which is there. So probably it is there. And do you see?
Yes, green buffers are really very helpful.
Yeah. So it's a yes or no?
Yes.
So, and the presence of bollards? Have you seen any bollards on the footpath?
No.
Thank you. Does the footpath material include engaging patterns, colors, or any art which is relatable to young children? 5th and 6th?
Yeah, answer for that is no.
And 6th one, does the footpath have ramps and smooth surface for ease of stroller or?
No.
Sorry to interrupt. I have to join another call. So I'll have to.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much. 7 and 8. Is the transit stop waiting area closer to the road and exposed to vehicular traffic?
So it's technically it is yes, but the thing is where the bus is stopping is actually a question. I couldn't understand if so people are actually standing outside the bus stop. So if you count that, then it's a no. But if you count the otherwise, it's a yes. For presence of dedicated stop line where the bus stops in order to reduce hassle, it's a no.
It's a no.
Yes, I actually mentioned it.
Yeah. So let's quickly finish 2 more videos. Vandita, can you just divide the groups?
Yeah, sure. But we only have 5 minutes.
Okay. So
we would also need one of you, to share whatever you have learned or whatever your insights or learning or whatever you want to give away from this group activity later on with everybody in the main group. So do I have any volunteers for that? It will just a 2-3 minute brief about anything that you have learned from this. Okay. Jashwant, can you, am I audible? Because I just got on chat that I'm not audible.
You are audible.
Okay, yeah, Sibi, I can definitely repeat. I was just asking that because we just have to end it in 5 minutes now, from whatever activity we just did, can any of you volunteer to share whatever you've learned or whatever you have taken away or whatever you want to give away to the main group from this activity? So can we have any volunteer? Hoping for one from the cities because this workshop is for the cities. So any volunteer from the city who can talk about what they've observed or anything new which they learned or anything new that they want to tell us regarding this. Rajkot, great sir. Thank you so much. All right.
And lastly, because we are trying to wrap it up, we want to ask few of your observations or inferences. Like what are the major issues, what you have observed? And what are the observations with respect to challenges you faced while collating this data from a video or Are there any inferences?
Do
Do you want to take this
response on
further
first-
with your
first
city and
question?
start doing things like this? And also certain key takeaways. Tomorrow when you go back to your city, do you want to conduct this kind of surveys and these kind of exercises which will help you to create a decision making based on a data centric approach? So uh, you can all unmute yourself and we can just write down certain inferences. I know we just conducted only one video's count and the qualitative survey. So, but still, I think we can definitely have some key takeaways.
Are we audible? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so one thing which we would like to speak. We are from Rourkela Smart City. Just a second.
Sure. Sir, you are muted.
So,
Now you're on.
can you hear me now? One thing that generally in this video kind of exercise, one good learning is that the time you start looking at the video, that time there is also clear brainstorming and visualization going in your mind that how before and after thing can be done for the situation before. If something, so suppose someone said that marbles were broken. A imaginary picture that comes in your mind of okay, these things can be done and this is how it will look after the work or inputs and suggestions which we put in projects. This is how it will look. Quite subjective what I'm saying. But yeah, this kind of video exercises, it helps you to visualize better your interventions.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Udit, do you want to say something? Hi, Udit, can you hear me?
Can you repeat the question?
I was just asking any inferences from the overall survey what you have conducted. Will you do it next time with your city when you are with the city? And what was the challenges you faced during this?
The challenge of the survey during the survey.
Yes.
The only challenge I found, it is a bit fast, and it is. I mean, while moving, the videos are shaky enough to actually have a quite the survey. I mean, the survey would have been better for us. I mean,
right.
That's it. There is no such other issues.
So will you do it with the city tomorrow if you get a chance and look it from a very data perspective?
Pardon?
Will you conduct this kind of surveys?
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. We're actually doing that.
Okay, thank you. Chetan?
Yes. In fact, basic passage is as the principle of nurturing neighborhoods, see the city from a height of 3 feet. And there you see the problems. So what we saw in the video was accessibility was a major issue for any toddler, whether it is walking on the footpath, whether it is the roadblocks, whether it is absence of bus stops, whether it is absence of signages, everything. So once we start seeing from a height of 3 feet, I think we can do a lot of small tactical interventions very immediately.
Thank you, sir. Sibi, do you want to say something?
Okay, if there are no, sorry, please, somebody's going on. Yeah, please.
Yeah, please. As that, if you can actually take the video from a urban 90 centimeter level, would have been a better understanding. I mean, when you see from the higher perspective, it's very different. Right. When you see from a 95 centimeter, actually, it's a different world out there.
Right. Exactly. Thanks, Amy. I think the surveys are really important for us, and especially when we are dealing with the cities from a lens of 95 centimeters. I hope this session has enlightened you about data, and especially looking at from a 95 centimeters and how city can be moderately changed and moderately made spaces which are accessible, convenient, safe, and inclusive for children and their caregivers. So I hope tomorrow when you go back to your cities, we'll take down certain aspects of this and we'll go on a much data-oriented approach. So thank you so much for all of your time. It was nice interacting virtually. We'll go back to the main session.
I think we're all back in the breakout, back in the main session now. I hope you all found that useful. Kaustubh, you'll be taking the groups through reporting back. You're muted, Kaustubh.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks. So, Nandini, just to confirm, we had 5 groups or 6?
There were 6 groups.
Okay. So each of the groups would be getting a couple of minutes just to reflect upon the activity. And the moderators can actually show the inferences slide from whatever was collected between the activity. So I'll start with the first group since I was moderating it.
And if I could just request everyone to try and be to keep to time and keep to about 2 minutes per group, since we are running a little behind.
I'll request 1 or 2 people from group 1 to reflect on the overall activity, what they felt, any impressions about the overall observations. Please unmute yourself and speak within a couple of minutes, please.
No one follows the rules actually, whether it is the driver or the conductor or the passenger or the neatness or environment part of it. Everything is, what to say, not properly attended to. If it is everything in place, perhaps there won't be any issues at all. There won't be need for such an exercise or job. That's why they scant respect for the rules and regulations and enforcement, poor enforcement of the system as such, whether it is a transportation or maintenance of the footpath or provision of facilities. None of these things are in place. That's a very disgusting and disappointing observation in this video as well as the whole system as such.
Sir, in terms of data, did it help you to identify which were the pressing problems and if it can be focused on first so as to start with these improvements?
It's a very difficult question to address straight away because our culture is like this. We never respect the rules. We never adapt to the system. Moreover, because of the demand supply gap in the system, people are desperately catching the buses and running from pillar to post and getting things done. So where to find the fault with, whether the population or the government or the funding agencies, is very difficult to address the issues. Anyhow, where the population is more, these issues are like this, big challenges. The same thing in a village with a population of 5,000 or 10,000. There is no such hue and cry or disorder movement of these things. So, yes, again, it is a very big policy matter, how to bridge the gap between the demand and supply with reference to fleet of buses, the frequency of buses, and then adequate facilities for toilets and benches, and segregating the facilities for 0 to 5 children, and then pregnant ladies, and then protection for old age people. See, segregating and planning for all these things need a meticulous way of looking at it, and then huge investment necessary for these things. Especially in metro cities like Delhi, Chennai, Mumbai, and Calcutta, the system is totally chaos. It is very, very dangerous to cross the road. And we are used to see that people are desperately running after the buses and catching it. It is a day-to-day daily affair in all the places. It is not a new system. So we are used to this one. It is going for centuries together. I do not know when we are going to end these things. This is my observation.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from Group 1 would want to share their thoughts quickly?
Okay, I'll try to share something. I think the density of people was really high. So some of the solutions can be taken from the questionnaire itself. So the question was like, if we have adequate markings and traffic calming measures. So just by like some tactical measures, like having proper street furniture or having markings, I think these problems could have been addressed. So I think there is an opportunity of doing design and tactical interventions, just placing signages for the bus drivers or putting adequate street furniture on the pavement and the footpath so that people are not just standing on the road, but they have adequate space to wait while they are being there. So I think learning from the questionnaire and the video, if we just try to put things together, it's a very productive tool that you have shared with us that we can do a collective exercise with multiple stakeholders. I'm sure like there is disregard for children and people with special needs. But I think we can overcome that and make something tactical in terms of our interventions.
Thank you, Priya. Since we are short on time, can we move to Group 2? And the moderator of Group 2 can actually share their screen.
Yeah, thank you, Kaustubh. I request Kshitija to share the screen, and someone from Group 2, if you want to share your experiences, please come forward. Maybe Hanita or Jabalpur Smart City. Can I request you to share your experiences? Yeah.
Yeah, hi, thank you. First of all, yeah, that tool was very useful in, getting the whole user perspective in place. So every time we looked at these videos, we looked at it from a perspective of either a pedestrian or a small child, and there were many gaps that could be easily filled, and out of which the major ones were safe crossings and traffic calming measures, bus bays, designated bus bays, street furniture for seating. And as far as the parks were concerned, there was a major underrepresentation of play equipment for younger children and for disabled, differently abled people. So so that really, this exercise really helped us, look at ways in which these areas could very effectively be improved just through planning from the perspective of the user. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we take one more? Kaustubh, do we have time for that, or shall we move on to the next group?
Yes, we can take one quickly.
Yeah. Can we have one more reflection from Group 2?
Hi, Ananya here from Jabalpur Smart City. I would like to add some points. There were, in first video, I found some of the absence of public utilities, poor washroom qualities, and I found some of traffic calming measures. Obviously, there were no proper bus stops and proper stop lines for bus. And regarding second video, I would like to add that sand pits and all should be added for toddlers.
Thank you, Ananya. Let's move to Group 3, and the moderator of Group 3 can quickly share their screen.
Sure, Kaustubh. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, perfect. And I think I'll request like Neha to from group 3 to start, and then anyone else also from group 3 can follow.
Hi, Suhani. Pooja this side from Indore Smart City. So thank you for this presentation, first of all, and thank you for giving this opportunity to us to like keep our points for this. So first of all, that what point I specified was the introduction of green buffers. So the first video that we saw had a traffic moment and a footpath where we realized that there was a very vague difference between the levels of footpath and the main street. So which can be easily done with the help of green buffers. Then why there is then of course the stop line and traffic calming measures we need to have. We did see that there was a defined bus stop, but then we didn't find any stop lines or any such measures, which could be again adapted for a hassle-free moment for ITCs. Similarly, segregation of pathways was the second point I targeted on. The third point, which was with respect to the park video that we saw, we didn't see any kind of feeding areas or any feeding station there, which could be an add-on for, because of course we'll be having infants and like 0 to 5 age group, and ITCs would be needing such provisions. Then segregation of the main pathways and the play areas, which was another point. Apart from that, introduction to signages and the other amenities that were needed were some key points that we observed in both the videos. We also need to observe like now we know what the loopholes and pros and cons of these data collection is, and we also need to observe the movement patterns, the behavior of people, like roadside when people shop on roadside, how they have zero significance of what the traffic pattern is or how the traffic is moving. So we need to pinpoint on these points especially now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can we move to group 4?
Yeah, I'm sharing. Yeah. May I request Anne from the ULT to go ahead and speak about her observations?
If you can put it in full screen, Madhura.
Yeah.
Thank you.
ULT team, can you please go ahead?
Hi, sorry. Hi, thanks, Madhura. The whole workshop was very helpful to sort of demystify the data collection process itself. And then it has reinforced that it's mostly observational and requires you to put yourself in the shoe of the toddler and the caregiver. And that's been an eye-opener. Secondly, the videos itself were interesting because we got a chance to talk with other cities and sort of see what they are thinking. So that's been helpful as well. This was a really nice experience. Thank you very much.
Anyone else from group 4 who would like to add? Okay, Kaustubh, maybe we can.
Okay, let's move to group 5.
Thanks, Kaustubh. Can you see my screen?
Yes, please put it in presentation. Yes, thanks.
So I would request Chetan Nandani from Rajkot Smart City. Could you just speak on the inferences of the exercise?
It was a very simple, short video, but it was an eye-opener. For a person like me who manages a city, it was a moment of truth. Like nothing was said, but it is such a simple tool. Like I just can move around my city and find so many small tactical measures which we can fix very immediately. I think it's a very good eye-opener. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are glad that you felt it was helpful.
Is anyone willing to speak? Iqbal, do you want to speak? I think that's it, Kaustubh. Thank you.
Okay, so in that case, let's go to the last group, group 6.
Yes, first of all, I'll quickly share my screen. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Okay. So Haryali from group 6 will be taking a lead and sharing some of the inferences from the exercise. Haryali, please go on.
So I guess majority of the insights have already been shared. Some of the things that I felt was that on the street that was shown in the video, there were multiple modes of transport. There were that were there, like autos and buses and other vehicles. So segregated zones would help in reducing the chaos on the street. Other main thing that I felt about the exercise was that we already have one list of quantifiable data for the tangible elements on our side. So it kind of helped us guide through our site visits, so that we already know what we are looking for, and then it would further help us to see anything that is site specific. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Haryali. Is there anyone else who would like to speak from group 6? Okay, Kaustubh, I
Okay.
think, yeah.
In that case, I would like to ask Louise from Gehl Architects to give her overall impression on the activity, as she has been an observer and being an expert on the area, what she feels.
Thank you very much. I think many of you have shared this experience of really putting yourself at the user experience or at the user perspective, which I think is very valuable. And I would maybe just add a few experiences that we have made over the years of how to also use this type of exercise, that because we have found that it's very valuable also as almost as a process tool for building shared understandings across different stakeholders. So in addition, then you just go out yourself individually to observe and collect this type of data. It could be very valuable also to do it amongst a bigger group of different stakeholders to really start seeing at eye level and first-hand experience, getting that shared understanding of what the main issues are. Yeah, that was just one point. Then I think some of the data points that you have highlighted and you want to focus on are really relevant, but could also be added and maybe quantified even more. A lot of you have remarked on the bus stop and the lack of a proper bus stop, but what is the impact of that in relation to the user groups that we are talking about here, the very small children? So could we even be more specific in measuring the number of children entering and leaving buses? So are we really seeing that these conditions prevent some groups from using public transport? Or so maybe just taking it some steps further to really see what the effect of all these public space elements that are leave some room for improvement, but what is the effect of that? Also, just another example, some of you mentioned the sidewalk width or the footpath width and the conditions. Maybe again that could be measured up against the number of pedestrians to really see what is the space available per user that you could expect or see at a certain time. Again, we have found that putting the hardcore numbers to issues like that is really effective in paving the way for change, because then you can sort of agree on what are the most pressing issues. The last video on the parks and play areas, given also the focus on early childhood development, I think it's interesting not just to look at the infrastructure, but also the type of play that it invites for or doesn't invite for. So do we see interactions between children? Do we see interactions between caregivers and children? Could we even, be more targeted in the type of observations? And a few of you also mentioned really not just taking children as one big age group, but really seeing our babies and small toddlers able to play with this equipment. Do we also have older kids? We have often seen that if some of these play elements also invite for adults to be active, it can really spark some positive interaction between caregiver and child. So yeah, just a few reflections both on how to use these type of methods and exercises strategically, but also putting new layers of data to it.
Thank you, Louise. So very rightly said that these are very much functional spaces in the cities, and in all the three videos, we couldn't see any of the infants or toddlers or caregivers because their environment has actually not become suitable for them. And it's not the case that in cities we don't have ITCs, just that they usually stay away from the places, or we tend to get into our cars and make them safe. But that's not how a city should be. A city should really be inviting ITCs to come out and play in the open spaces. So with that remark, I would like to hand it over to Nandini.
Thank you. Yes, thanks very much for those comments, Louise, and thank you to all the cities for participating so enthusiastically, for sharing your insights. Actually, to close the session, I would like to invite my colleague Sree Kumar to share some closing remarks and to summarize some of the key takeaways from this session and what to keep in mind going forward. Sree, if you would like to.
Thanks, Nandini. It was great to have a very enthusiastic participation. We are very happy to see that this activity was useful, and this is the first of the series of the workshop of this, and we will be talking going further from this. Today we had an initial thinking on how to count children and count the conditions in which our children and caregivers are using the cities. Now, going on the next week, on the 8th, we will have a more deeper discussion on innovative ways of collecting data, and this is going to be another very interesting way of doing a very detailed assessment and connecting that with design. And the next week, following that next week, that is on the 15th, we will have a workshop on designing the our projects and the types of projects we're doing, and it's going to be more talking on how to take this data into design and various ways of looking at it. And then from there, the next week we will go on to think about how to implement some of the tactical interventions. I think I'm very happy to see some of the speakers from the cities today spoke that how we're going to think about tactical interventions to rectify some of the issues on ground. And so we will talk about that in detail on the tactical intervention sessions. And the session next to it, we will be talking in terms of looking at overall behavioral nudges on how to create a better environment for children and caregivers. So these are the activities, these are the workshops coming in the series. We're looking forward for having you there in all the workshops. And before I end, I would like to thank Louise for joining us and helping us to go through this giving the background. And thanks a lot, Louise. And then followed by the ministry team. Thanks, ministry has always been a great strength for us in conducting this. Been having a great support. Thanks, Jeenal, also for sharing the city level data collection. And of course, thanks to Bernard van Leer Foundation, who has been a great, been creating a lot of knowledge around this. And we're very happy that we are able to leverage the research and thinking about how to implement some real good changes in the cities. And thanks to Bernard van Leer Foundation and thanks to my team members. Thanks a lot. And of course, thanks a lot for the cities. We look forward to see you on the next session.
Thank you, everyone. So we will close the session now and look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good afternoon.